Welcome, everybody. Today we have some nice technical issues with my laptop, so apologize for being like a few seconds. Today I'm going to be alone on the stadium, but I think I'll give you a lot of entertainment for security topics. So welcome once again. Happily to host you guys. We're going to talk about security role-based design, and to give everybody a few seconds to join and to warm up a little bit the audience. Let us know if you can hear us and see us correctly on the chat. Also, you can comment if you have some current problems with security, and that's a perfect moment to ask some questions also from your deep security heart. If you are struggling with something with finance and operations, let us know. It would be great to gather those topics and discuss them at the latest Q&A. So this session will be purely guided by you guys. Definitely we have some nice topics to cover, but if there will be something tempting to cover new from the chat, you can count on us. I'll switch in the meantime for the presentation. Do we have some comment, guys? My crew from studio. Awesome. From the agenda, let's start this. Okay. From the agenda, we're going to cover today a baseline, what we are fighting with, so how the structure of security looks like, some deeper level elements. We're going to then cover what we are fighting for. So what are the benefits of building the security right? We're going to cover strategy with business users, which is one of the critical element for those processes, because at the end of the day, you have to work with business process leads, BPLs, SMEs, or BPLs. So people in the business, because we are defining their roles. We are defining how they will work day by day. So that's essential, and that's important phase for implementation as well. We're going to talk about some side topics, some how long the project takes. We can incorporate that a little bit in the implementation process as well. And then I'm going to have for you a Miro board where we're going to do some explanations on the map to see how this specific particular process looks like from the deployment, creation, SME sign-off. So you're going to have like complex element, which is very easy to utilize within every type of implementation for finance and operations, but simply saying for AX 2012 if you are struggling as well. And finally, I'm going to cover the executive automates for security setup, which is the functionality, the application which is created by us, by our team. That's for me a nice element, because as a co-founder for that application, I was able to combine there a lot of functionalities that were needed from the security project perspective, and we found attractive, and we found a game changer for the security project. So with that being said, we're going to start the baseline. So as you see here, the finance and operations security is mostly based off roles, duties, and privileges. The standard comes from the APQC library, but back in the years by Microsoft, and that library is pretty complex, but it's standardized. It is one for all types of implementations or for every company, which either way you're going to take a look at that, it will not work because these components are very broad. They are big, and you have to be aware that from the licensing perspective, you pay for what you use. So if you're going to use standardized, very broad components for the security, your licensing fee will skyrocket. And at the end of the day, you have no control for licensing. But if you are a SOX compliance company, these three elements, utilizing standard, we can clearly say that it is impossible to create, or barely impossible to create, SOX compliance company with finance and operations utilizing standard privileges. You need to have few elements to make it compliant. So, starting from the beginning, roles, duties, privileges, and they are built out of secureable objects, so called entry points. So at the end of the day, we cover and we are concerned what actually is in that smallest privilege, because privilege is a group of entry points. Duty is a group of privileges, and role contains either duties or privileges or both. So that's in a glimpse structure for security. And this hasn't changed so much from AX 2012. If you're going to be interested, we can cover that question later on, some idea about that. So what we are fighting with from beginning or from understanding for security. The role-based security model is super hard to redesign. And if you're going to build from custom role, standard system is just nightmare. So this is an element which I covered, but to extend that a little bit, if you're going to consider applying a standardized role, very often it means 2,000 entry points, and each entry point is actually equal to buttons, forms, functionalities, reports, so forth. So if you have very specific needs for sales representative, the person does 5 processes in the system, you give accounts receivable clerk, pretty standard, or sales representative from standard. And this means that you're going to give 2,000 elements, whereas you actually need about 30, 50, or even 100. That 1,800 components, which you're going to give on the top, they are coming from the standardized way how world works. And it shouldn't be like that. But that's your choice. The choice, you have the possibility to utilize standard. And in most cases, user needs to have access to Visual Studio to search for individual entry points. And that statement is also very true, because from the perspective of security, standard doesn't give you so much of a possibility to identify entry points. Of course, on the right side, you've got that form information. So this is the place where you can see exactly what entry point should be there, but it's very inaccurate in most situations. So if you are an IT admin and your user just is claiming, I need access to this and this form, you are in the place where you will go there, you'll find out that the form information doesn't contain what you wanted, and then suddenly you'll end up in the place that I have to open up Visual Studio. In most companies, Visual Studio is something which is not there understood. Plus, the IT departments are limited and very few people are working in it. So you might not even have licenses for that because partner is doing this. So that starts the complex process and it might not be needed. So it is good to have some alternative solutions. Standard reporting system can't tell you straight what license you need. And that's also a very true statement because of that. The standard of the system has 2 reports, user counts, licenses. So you are able to identify what level of the licenses people are having. Plus you are able to find out from the second report, the new model, the basic model. That's fine, but you have to do a lot of calculations and you have to extract those two reports to build one complex scenario, one complex calculation of the licensing. So standardized reporting of the system can make you a headache because if you are just about to sign the enterprise agreement license, you will need to spend a little bit of time to define what license you have. So please keep in mind that if you are before that activity, it is good to do that exercise prior to setting up some meetings with Microsoft to define the licensing scope. Current licensing model mixes the operations with basic attachment model. And that's another obstacle you have to be aware of. Not every component of the system is yet adjusted to the latest model which was released in licensing guide. So you have to be aware that you need to do sometimes manual decisions, what kind of licensing level is applied for the role. And that will lead you to certain savings or additional costs if you're going to talk about the licensing in the system. can extend that topic, just let us know on the chat if you are interested in it. And finally, standard of dynamics without tools is in practice close to impossible to get SOX compliant. And that's true. And I will explain you one thing. It might sound technical, but from the standard perspective, if you don't create your own privileges, this will mean that you would not know what is in privilege. So maybe one word about the SOX compliance. SOX compliance is the approach or a required compliance from the stock markets, especially NYSE and Nasdaq. So if your company ABC is required to be SOX compliant, you need to perform an audit by one of the big firms from auditing, and they will give you a set of rules that you have to apply for organization, saying that somebody who has access to purchases, they shouldn't have access, and they do payments, they shouldn't have access to modification of the bank accounts. If somebody does some another type of payments, they shouldn't have access to something else. Some crossing functionality, which will give you a superpower access, we can say. Of course, there are exceptions like CFOs and general manager and so forth, but they are exceptions. They've got additional agreements. Overall, it's all about making sure that the organization will not exceed or they will not behave in the bad faith. So we are, by SOX compliance, we are making sure that the stakeholders and shareholders are secure and nobody will make some bad moves. If you are not SOX compliant and you are on the market or you fail audit, it is a massive fine, and it is purely massive. It might even be higher cost than your whole implementation of ERP system. So this is why it is so important. And SOX compliance, you have to create that based on your understood privileges. So you have to create your own privilege from scratch. You need to be super sure what is inside. The privilege, since it is a group and it can contain everything, simply saying can have a name of sales creation, but I can add a lot of inside. I can with hyper power access, and this will mean that it sounds like I have just sales creation, but I have superb access. That's why it is needed to define your whole process of creation of privileges and make it very transparent. Even if you use standardized components, privilege, it doesn't mean one entry point access. That is the biggest concern from auditors. If you're going to work with privileges, then you might lead to inadequate access because the privileges might be too broad. You simply saying you need to work on the entry points level, so the smallest particle, to make it compliant. So what do we fight for? We fight for SOX compliance possibility, as we discussed. License transparency. So it is good to understand why I pay X amount for my organization and wisely plan how much I'm gonna need for future. Because if I don't know how my warehouse operator will cost right now, and the cost will be super high, it's important to make the project and estimate the cost and find out if I can make some savings on the warehouse operator on other rows. Because if this is not optimal, you might have some troubles in the future where you'll budget the ERP system for next years. UX and UI simplification. That component is also important because the access rights, so entry points, are giving you button access, buttons, forms, and so forth. If you're going to take a look on the system which is optimized from the licensing and SOX compliance perspective versus the system which doesn't have that project done, you will see that you have multiple functionalities available. So the learning curve. So if I'm the accountant who starts the first day of the job after implementation, so let's say the first day after go live, and they will see multiple functionalities on the top, they might be distracted. So they will make some mistakes. So in other words, to guarantee bigger success for the go live, it is good to start the go live with appropriate roles. Plus, very often you have functionalities access the functionalities which are not finished or not actually designed for the go live. So you can end up in some dead ends where user will use functionality which was visible from the beginning, but they had some free time, so they wanted to see what it is, and they will cause some deadlocks. They will cause some very unpredictable behavior of the system because nobody was designed that functionality for you today. So you're gonna have problems with calculation, problems with multiple other stuff because somebody, by accident or in the free time, just utilized some function which was not intended to be used or not designed to be used. And lastly, point number 4, documentation, understanding of business processes on each level of ERP users. So how you can understand that? If you're gonna go through a security project, you will need to produce documentation based on which you've created roles. Of course, maybe not you will have to do that, but if you are SOX compliant, that's the product that you're going to create either way. So if you're going to go that direction, it will be easier for you to become SOX compliant or to just explain the business that this is a best carrot. This is a carrot you can get out of the process for security creation. You're going to have documentation for your day-by-day usage. And this will just increase the ERP level of the knowledge of the ERP system users. So that's the element which you can have as a benefit. Strategy with the business users. So the business user is a critical component. Without SMEs, without BPOs, you will never accomplish that project unless your documentation is perfect, which is a very rare situation. So the strategy is all about making sure that they are available for us. If they are, then we just need to define further elements. DevOps artifacts. So you can use SharePoint or Excel file for this type of project where you build your security roles out of the blue and you're going to maintain one global Excel file. But you're going to have much better value if you're going to do it right, straight from the beginning as DevOps, which will have business areas, which will have components created, roles created, documentation got it under the roles, SMEs in the chat claiming their findings. So DevOps is the perfect place to start the project. Define the RACI matrix, so forth. These projects, they will become very complex. And then if you're going to have that component done, if you're going to create your role perfectly, and the project will be delivered, everybody will be happy from the SOX compliance and licensing perspective. Business will have perfect documentation explaining what they do in the system. So they have understanding. If the business will grow and if they're going to have some extensions needed, they will have perfect base on which they can make some next choices. So if the sales representative will have new responsibility, they can add to that tree view the responsibilities. So this will be incrementally growing. You're going to have one point of truth, and this will be also used for every business development. So new regulations coming from the market, new rollouts, so forth, that will have an impact on the project tree, which at the end of the day will be a perfect place to share with the SMEs. So that's about the artifacts, and then documentation a little bit as well, because the DevOps will contain documentation, ready roles. This can be easily attached as a work item in the tree. So highly recommend doing that. And there is a naming convention. We, from the perspective of different security projects, we see that each of the processes, they will have issues when you will not call them by its specific name, or you will not set up the code for the process. If you're going to set up a naming convention saying that process will start with ABC as the department or area, then you're going to have ID of the process and maybe variant, and then name of the process, you are able to get that preciseness level. If somebody will tell me that they are working on process with that ID, with that name, there is no possibility to make it wrong. We've seen multiple situations where salespeople on production, they said, we have a problem with sales creation. Please check that. What they had in mind is sales creation, but international transaction, affiliated entity. So SO creates PO, and that's very complex. So misunderstanding, not clear communication, and problems on production because nobody was testing that and somebody had in mind something else. If you're going to build naming convention, also for either for testing or for security access, you have preciseness here. And finally, this is something as we discussed on the DevOps. When you're going to end up the project, it will be great asset for organization because license, security compliance, plus perfect place where the processes are designed. And continuing, other elements which are great to cover. Please, when you think about the security projects, have in mind that there are SMEs. You might need functional consultant, or area consultant who knows processes, because they will support you if you're going to have some gaps in the project. So if you're going to, in the SME, so the business will tell us that the process should be done like that from A to Z, but there are going to be some gaps. The functional consultant, area consultant can fill those gaps. They can just support you in that way. If the business is not available so much, the consultant is very important in that element. Developer, of course, if you're going to have some unfinished functionalities, ISV functionalities, which are not created with best practices and entry points are hidden in methods in the classes, then developer might be important because they will need to extract and debug what is missing. It happens. It is less and less visible on the Microsoft releases. Each release which is delivered, there is a more clear view on that, but ISVs are not doing that perfectly yet. Hopefully in the soon, you will not need developers so much, but right now it's an element which is good to have in the project. And IT admin, of course, DFO system administrator, person who will allocate the roles, who will make those necessary importing of the system, importing of roles, which will give you the possibility to perform UATs. And mentioning UATs, UAT for security access is critical component. User acceptance tests means for security that your role which is created is validated and signed off. So if I'm going to build for my end user a role, they need to see that. They need to practice their processes on that newly created role, and they need to tell me, I'm aware what is inside, I can perfectly work, and I see everything what I needed. And only with that signature, it goes as a release package to the production. Without that, we don't do release, because at the end of the day, we potentially can block users on the production system. Maybe another tip for you guys. If you're going to build new role on UAT, business is doing sign-off. If you would like to push that to production, try to take a group of 10 people, 15 people, not do automatic role allocation to everybody who is on that position. Do it for a smaller portion, just to make sure that it will not disturb potentially work on multiple users. So after a period of a week or 2 or 3 weeks or even a month, you will then say, okay, that's fine, we can do for all. If you have higher pace and you need to do it in the rush, of course you can, but that step-by-step approach increasingly can save you some time. It is good to start with the process matrix, so understand what processes you have in the organization. Very often when you come to the system, to the organization for security projects, there are no clear definitions. Even though it might be a go live, they have no clear definition of what processes are handled by user A, B, and C, which makes the problem, because we need that essential component to understand what people are doing to create roles for them at designed access. So if you're going to have that, you are far, far ahead from the others. If you don't have that, you will need to create those workshops with SMEs to unpack processes and build on them more duties. And now let's jump into the Miro. I just want to see, guys, if there are any questions on the chat. If yes, let me know. I'll try to address them. In the meantime, I'm going to switch the screen to the Miro assets. Percent. Okay. And the second screen, this one with the first. All right, guys. So now Miro. Just confirm if you can see the Miro screen. Perfect. Thank you so much. So let me show you one element before I'm going to start the showcase for Miro. I was mentioning to you UX optimization. So what I was mentioning to you is that example that we did in the other webinars. Standardized role versus custom role. Standardized, Jimmy Kimmel, our sales representative, is carrying or handling 5 processes. We have sales creation, customer creation, sales confirm, release product view, direct delivery. 5 processes. Standard role, 2,047 entry points. Matt Damon, the same thing, but 21 processes. Why? Because each of them, they were recorded, they were designed to be tailored, and we've been able to identify, unpack, build the role, let them work. And this means that the user, after optimization, is less expensive. They are very tailored from the button perspective, from functionality perspective. This is all they need to confirm and do total discounts. And here they have standardized. They have different confirmation. They have, aside of that, multiple other functions. And this is just on the sell ribbon. If you're going to take a look on others, you're going to see multiple more elements. So this is what we are fighting for, to have clean user interface. We do a lot of workshops on these examples, so apologize that we have a lot of components here, but I will try to streamline that. So today's exercise is all about working with business user, a sales representative. So how we do that? You have those 2 scenarios. We are aware of what they do already. We have some documentation. That's perfect. We can utilize that for defining security access based on this. Or if you are, by now, you have a database of your test scripts that you use for day-by-day regression or month-by-month regression or smoke tests. Each test case can be a perfect source for security because you can unpack from test case a security context. So you are able to save a lot of time. And with that being said, from the other way around, if you are creating your processes and you're going to record step-by-step process, this can be a perfect base for your testing because we are just recording business processes. So if you're going to do it right, if you're going to have a perfect naming convention, by doing one project which is focused on security, you are building another layer for testing. So you have to perform process recording for everybody, for every business processes, because you need to cover all business processes which are going to be used by the users. So you will know what is your 100% of the coverage of the business processes. And that will just gain more value for your smoke test because you'll be able to schedule frequent testing for your one version. And we know, everybody knows that one version is one of the problems, or maybe not the problems, but challenge that you have to face utilizing a type of greenfield applications. focusing back on the Miro, we have sales representative process list. We have 3 processes outlined. Sales create, customer payment journal. Beginning here, that's the code name. So this gives me idea what is the process code. So area of the business, sales area, ID, and variant, potentially if to be used. So having those 3 processes, I can transfer those 3 processes to DevOps. I can create a work item with information who is responsible. I can modify the position name here to sales rep working from sales area. So this information will be saved in DevOps. The code will be SA. And then the processes are mentioned on the left-hand side. These all elements, they will need to be defined in DevOps because somebody who will make an audit from the SOX compliance perspective or any other perspectives, they will go here and they will see, all right, Daniel Craig, our sales rep, we have great organization that he agreed to work on such a low wage. The person has 4 processes. These are, 3 processes. We know exactly what they do. And we know because somebody showed us from the A to Z how this looks like in finance and operations. So we are able to be we can have like a hyper precision. If auditor will come and they say, so based on what grounds you've added this specific access to that person? And we say, because of that, because we have this process and that's embedded in the system and that's exactly what the person has. So there is a no, or we can say 0 chance that auditor will show that something is wrong here unless you're gonna indeed give too much access. Where in the standardized method, unfortunately, you have a lot of possibilities that you're gonna give too much because you are operating on the chunks and you don't know what exactly is in those chunks. That's the problem. So in DevOps, we're gonna identify the processes, and then we're going to add in here more information about when it was signed off, what processes, what duties, roles, privileges were created. And that will make the full transparency. You can communicate with SMEs, with program manager, testers, with everybody on the chat on the DevOps. So that's perfect communication, statuses, way to go, done, in progress, so forth. This will just help you out use DevOps for your whole project. So that's the outcome, but what is the first step? The first step is to record step-by-step process by BPLs or system administrator consultant. So we are recording a test case. Test case follows step-by-step process, how to do one of those 3. Sales create customer payment journal. So by saying that and creating that, we are building a test case. Out of that test case, we are importing that to Executive Automate Security Setup. So we unpack the whole context of security and we build number of duties, which will actually mirror, or name will mirror the process, but it will give me a precise access rights how to perform A, B, and C. The role which will be created needs to be sent to the UAT, and on UAT, we are doing sign-off. So the business needs to go to the UAT, they will take the action, they will repeat the processes, and they will say, I can do or I cannot do my processes. If I cannot do, we can adjust with them additional entry points to build perfect access right. Ready row goes to production. And here, just to give you understanding, the business processes is the core of everything. If you're going to have perfectly matched business processes, you're going to just add more value for test automation, more value for security, then you can progress with documentation, performance testing, and so forth, so forth. The additional value which comes from perfectly designed project for process identification can be infinite. So that's why it is important to work closely with BPLs. So they know what they're going to do in the system. We know how to cut the fragments of the system to make their life easy to see exactly functionalities that they're going to use only in day-by-day job. So let's do that. Let's record 3 processes. let's build a role and let's do together a UAT. So you will see how easy it is to do such a complex process. I'm going to now switch here to my executive automats. I'm going to use this executive automats instance for mapping of the security. So here on the left-hand side, I have security webinar. That's the major project. And here I have my other areas. So we're going to record the first one in sales. Let's take a look. It was sales create. I can copy the name. I can go to scripts and I can click add. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste the name here. So we're going to record sales creation. So hide this, create. So just to make sure that you understand the context, we went to the business users and we asked them, so sales representative, what they do? And they said, 1, 2, 3, 3 processes. Perfect. Within the same session, we go with them and say, now focus on sales creation. Tell us what you're going to do. And the business goes here, defines the name, clicks create, start and record. System loads finance and operations with necessary access rights, necessary environment. So all the other obstacles, they are moved away. We just want to purely focus today on your sales creation process. System loads, so let's give him few more seconds. It's peak hours right now for our dynamics. We have a lot of demos. And we are logged in. So now the business user hits record and navigates through dynamics. Accounts receivable, all sales, defining new, maybe switching entities. Ideally, the process has to be continuous. So we go and the business knows what customer account to use, what other elements needs to be added, and so forth. They know requirements and so forth. But if they don't do that, if they don't know everything about the system, that doesn't matter so much. We can later on adjust. Somebody from security, IT admin they can just clean up some unnecessary steps. So then it can be used for further test automation. So I'm going to continue the item number selection. Let's set up the site and warehouse. So business tell us what they do, and we just need to make sure that we understand what they do and the price. And they can say, right, and now actually I need to save. And right after that, on the sale tab, we're going to do confirm now. Confirm now, confirmation, sending to the customer. So that component is critical. I can click save and stop the recording. So the process is saved. We have the boundary, start and stop. We are fine. We can move on to the second process. So close. We can go to the projects again, to our place where we are defining our processes. Of course, we have here a pretty big tree defining different streams, different approaches. You might have this much more simplified. What is the second process? The second process is about create customer. Perfect. Let's take the name and let's record another process. So we're going to build another duty out of that. Second one and create. So as you see, it's all about the knowledge about the business process. You just need to have ready environment and person who will record these steps. As simple as that. And within that recording, the system is extracting more and more context from finance and operations to understand what entry points were used. And this can be then converted to duty. And we're going to do that exercise in a moment. Of course, if you don't have license for test automation executive automats, you can use the same direction with task recording. So you can record with users task recordings, which will identify processes and then can unpack security access rights from task recording. So we can say that concept in most of the elements of the creation can be tool agnostic. I mean, using only executive automats for security setup, you'll be able to do what you wanted. Okay. Let's define some unique customer name. Just realize that I have to be more precise here. Let's do webinar customer 011 and customer group. In the meantime, if there are any questions, being busy with recording of my process, let me know, guys, from the studio, if there is something urgent to do. If not, I will just carry on. Okay, so second process recorded, customer creation, indeed. Stop recording, save to the third one. And the third one is customer payment journal. So close. Typically, the projects are about creating the roles for people which are having 5-10 processes. So recording will take you an hour, maybe 1.5, then conversion, and within 3 hours, you are happy with new role created. So this can be very slick. If you have a project where you focus on the warehouse operator, which does few processes, it can be even quicker. It's all about SMEs. It's all about transparency of the processes and understanding. If you have that in your team, this project can be hyper quick. If you don't have that, it may take a little bit more time, but it's doable. It's doable for practically every company. You don't need to have an enormous budget to do those security projects, because at the end of the day, it's all about your savings, efficiency, possible SOX compliance, so multiple benefits. Don't want to extend too much, but considering the fact that Dynamics doesn't have that function in the standard, this limits a lot of potentials for SOX compliance companies. SAP on the market has that functionality, which I'm not so super happy about that, but I believe that in the future, Dynamics will have this capability and will be able to compete for SOX compliant customers in a very easy way to build their awareness, to build the possibility to create a perfect and auditable SOX compliance for companies which are on NASDAQ or NYSE market and they want to do business with Dynamics. Anyway, continuing the AR to the customer payment journals, I'm recording the third one process, which will do the customer payment. And this will simply mean that we'll be able to play around a little bit with the duty creation. So account name, that's perfect. Let's do here credit. Let's pay a little bit. The description webinar. And in the meantime, as you see left-hand side, we have a panel which identifies steps. So step by step, system identifies what you do, and nothing stops us to play back this in the background for validation perspective for daily regression testing or daily, more likely, smoke testing. Okay, we can now do validate the voucher. Operation completed. I've missed the occasion to ask the guys for a stopwatch to see how many minutes it would take to create those two processes. My bad. Next time I'm going to do that, guys, for you. It's pretty fun to see how efficient we can be. And actually, the record for us was creating 600 duties in 3 weeks, I think. Yeah, something like that. 600 duties. And out of that, multiple roles, but it was pretty awesome to see. Created 3 processes, everything is saved, and now I can navigate to my environment. So let's open up finance and operations again. Right now I'm logged in as my account, not using executive automat, so the same thing you would do having test cases recorded in finance and operations task recording. Actually, I see that I have one bummer here. So let me correct my access rights for my account on this environment. They are actually low. I have only access to some elements like sales orders. So that's very limited. In the meantime, you can take a look how simplified it can get. I have created for some other workshops a role which have access only to minimum of minimum, which the company needed. So manage, pick and pack, general, transportation. So as simple as it can be, accordingly to the requirements. So let me go back here to the system administration, just to explain you a little bit more. On that recording, I'm using account called AWX test. So this is a different account with system admin. So now I can elevate my access rights for my personal account, which is here. So that account will have system admin as well. Assign the roles. And of course, all roles created with software, they're gonna be here. So we'll be able to then select them. Right now, system admin, confirm. System admin is added. And now I'll be able to refresh my access rights on the my personal account. All sales, refresh. System takes from the configuration what I have right now, the new access rights. So now I'm going to see the whole system, and in the system admin, you will see security process roles maintain. Left hand side, your organization structure. So in here you define the way how you are structured, your hierarchy of an organization, business flows, however you're going to feel comfortable with. Just build your areas. It will help you find the perfect place where to save your role. We have a sales team. So I'm going to build here new child entry, which will be sales area. Okay. And now underneath the sales area, we're going to create new child entry because this is going to be a sales rep. So new child entry again and sales rep. Confirm. So this means that I'm going to have one sales representative role underneath the sales area. And now I'm going to define duties and job tasks for the person. So sales rep will do processes recorded in executive automats. If I'm going to click here, system will load all latest test cases recorded in EA. So we're going to see those we should recorded together for the project today. So sales create, include table permissions and controls permissions. We go also lower level to code permissions for that. SA sales create. Let's go further. Let's take also the customer creation and confirm. And you can continue. If there are going to be 5 or 10 or more, you can do much more added to the row. Of course, we need to work accordingly to what business required. And they told us we have just 3 processes to load. 3 are created. If you're going to scroll down, 4 sales creation, I need 4 entry points with necessary access rights. So-called CRUD, create, update, read, delete. There is also invoke, but more for technicalities. So that's the way how you are utilizing the system. And take a look. All of those entry points, they are practically team member activity. There is no operations. There is no basic, not an expensive role. Customer creation. Oh, customer creation is more expensive. We have maintain user license operations. So this can be more powerful, more expensive. We need to be careful in here. And customer payment. That's definitely, that's not typically for sales representative. So we have much more entry points and also high license for this. So identified 3 processes, identified them with executive automats. Now I've uploaded them. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply create a duty. out of the first task script. So the first one will be called sales create, accordingly to the one that we have in executive automats recorded. So now system created a duty. Then I'm going to continue to the second duty and create. So system picks up everything which was identified. It sets the sort of ready duty to be published in a moment. But we need to define and call each one that we imported today. So they're going to have unique name. Oh, I'll need to copy this. Okay. And create for the last time. So through process created, recorded, 3 duties just about to be created. System takes a bit more time than usual. Welcome everybody. Due to the technicalities on the webinar, we had to break the session, so I just want to record for you the follow-up, so you're going to have the rest of the webinar, which I hope everybody wanted to see. So as you remember, we recorded 3 processes for sales representative. What I'm going to do now, I will simply create one more sales representative underneath the sales area in our organization hierarchy. So sales rep is here. We're going to have the entry, and now, as we did on the webinar, I will point out to those 3 processes that we created together. The first one is sales create. The second one is other create customer. Finally, moving towards customer payment journal. So we have now 3 processes created, entry points identified for each. Now I can create duty for each of those. So I can take the names, create duty for sales create. Duty name is already existing. All right. So yeah, as I was creating that in the past, maybe I can do sales create D1. So we're going to have duty 1 created. We're going to have customer create duty 2 created. And finally, customer payment journal. So we've got 3 duties created, necessary entry points allocated, and now I will create a new role to combine those 3 duties. Webinar role 01. Now system will take 3 duties, it will automatically publish it, and the webinar role 01 will go straight to the configuration. So webinar role 01 is here with duties, with privileges, and necessary access right, including also if the existing some references to controls and entry points from code permissions. So all is here, all is simplified, and all matches the business process that we recorded together. What's left? We just need to allocate for the business user, and business user can do the validation of us, and then we can move that specific entry point via XML to our application, to our production application, or to simply UAT to perform sign off and deliver to the prod any other way around. So that's it from the additional part, and we're gonna carry on with the webinar. Can you tell me if there are any differences between AX2012 and D365 security? All right, that's a pretty interesting question and pretty common. From the different 2012 and finance and operations, you won't see so many differences. The model was pretty upgraded, but without so many changes. There is no RLSs available in D365, so there are other ways to do that, like XDSs. The licensing model lately changed a lot. I mean, you had enterprise license in 2012, whereas right now you have purely operations and actually basic model. So there are definitely changes on the licensing level. Plus, there are attachments, which is newly concept introduced by Microsoft. So this is something which you have to be aware of. And lastly, I think that attachment component, and this will just lead you to more changes. So definitely this is not the last shape of licensing in the architecture dynamics. It's going to be probably more optimized to other, like a set of singular systems, whereas X2012, when you have access to AOT, it was pretty one common block. So that there are a lot of course differences from the development perspective, but from technical and security from the security perspective, from the technical aspects, you have to have Visual Studio Access, which is probably additional cost for you, whereas in 2012 you had access out of the box. So a few elements to remind. And if you have some follow-up, or if I'm not covering everything for that comparison, just let me know. I can elaborate a little bit more. Any more questions? Okay. Is there any D365 standard function for SOX compliance? Yes, but I mean, in standard of the system, in finance and operations, you are able to define your SODs, so rules based on which were provided by auditors, but this won't mean that you will be able to be SOX compliant. Unfortunately, as I was mentioning, you would need to create your own duties, which will be a problem. You can define rules in standard. You can define, you can sort of work with violations and exceptions. So when you are adding new role to the current user, system will tell you if you are violating some rules or not. So the base is perfect, but you need to have right tool sets and reporting, which will make that SOX compliance as a trio. Using standard, you struggle a lot to build SOX compliance organization. Okay, and working forward, we're about to start implementation. Where we should place security project in the scope. So security projects should definitely take a phase after your code from the areas created. So you can say, you've done your fit and gap analysis, you've done your functionalities which are covering the gaps. Then these gaps are signed off by the business. And when the business is signing off those gaps, so you are sure that the functionality is well designed, business will tell you that the UAT phase sign off the function itself. You should have a second phase, the UAT security. And in between UAT and UAT security, you will need to build your duty role to do kind of a dual UAT phase to make sure that the whole role and the prior to go live, your users will work, and this whole concept of learning the system will be done on the roles which are designed for that. We highly advise to do this because if the users will learn the system with very broad access rights, you will end up in the situation where they will feel confused. On the day one after go live, they will see the system, they're going to be disappointed because this is not they learned. This is not something they've seen within the learning curve. That's why it is important to do security after UATs, start the UAT security phase, and before they're going to learn and work on the project, on the go live, to make sure that the user rights are corrected. This will also have very positive impact on the way how your licenses will work. So it will be easier for you to sign 5-year contract with Microsoft to secure your licenses. Yeah, that's the perfect way to go. Okay, do we have more questions? Thank you. Thank you. So nice comments. yeah, next time we're gonna do a bit more. Maybe we're gonna try to use the tier 2 environment for the process. Maybe it should work better. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much, guys, for jumping in today. It was a pure pleasure. It was pretty intense exercise, so happy to meet you also on site. Feel invited to Dynamics Minds, where we're going to host our sessions on 27th of May. We'll also visit Dallas on 26th of March, and a few other events which you can learn from our Executive Automates landing page. This year, we are pretty intensively visiting United States, Canada, and Europe for multiple events. So super happy to have you guys here. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and yeah, see you on events and see you in Dynamics.